Maybe you are searching among the branches for what only appears in the roots, says Rumi. To clearly understand what the problem is, to diagnose correctly, and then to be able to prescribe the solution is priceless. I was in a situation where even though I had over 30 years of corporate America IT software development experience, I was in a software development situation. It took me over a year to understand the causes and effects and connecting all the symptoms and to understand all the principles. The gentleman that you see on the right hand side on the back of a buffalo, his name is Lao Tzu, and what he holds in his hand is Tao Te Ching, the way, the Tao. A big bird does not perch on a small twig. A big fish does not swim in a shallow creek, and a big beast does not hide behind a small clump of weed. Why not? Because that's not the way. It's about the principles, the universal principles such as the gravity that gives you predictable, repeatable results. So the art of execution is the first and maybe the last ever holistic organizational transformation framework that can be wielded by anybody, by any person in the organization. It's ideal if you are the CEO and the top people, but even if you are not, this gives you the tool to understand what to do, how to do it, how not to let other people stop you, and how to not trip yourself up. So those are the leader's edge skills, process ninja skills, cohesive skills, and duality skills. The what, the how, the teamwork, and the fluidity dealing with duality. We'll talk more about that. The knowledge being shared in here, I can honestly say, is worth millions of dollars for the right people in the right place where there is dysfunction and it's unclear what the solution is. There are dysfunctional companies around the world in different countries, different continents. So my goal is to establish a network of OLPs, organization leverage person, all over the continent, and then we will bring light and solution to different companies and bring happiness and reduce suffering for the workers. The needs are many, the problems are infinite, and the solution will bring lots of money, requires lots of skills and experience. And this framework, what you have here is a quick 1 hour or less summary about how this whole thing could be put together. The choice of power sources, right? Official power is not transportable. Official power, obviously, is just what your role in the company is, and there are very few people who are the CEOs, the CIOs, the COOs, the CFOs. Therefore, for the OLP, the sources of power are processes and principles. Kind of like what Abe Lincoln said, right makes might. If you understand how something works, if you can articulate it, if you can defend it, and even in cases where they don't want to hear it, maybe you should not say it, but at least you would know very clearly in your mind what the right solution is, and over time you will be able to bring it to bear, or you may choose to leave the situation if it doesn't seem like you will be able to drive the bus anytime soon. So there are different levels: personal, interpersonal, managerial, organizational. Leader's edge skill gives you the holistic big picture about what to do, and is at the managerial and organizational level. Process ninja skills. How to do it? Every step should be error-free. Every step should add significant value and not NVAs, non-value added activities. How to do it? Process skills are life skills. Everything is a process, from getting married to buying a car to getting breakfast or going to work, from taking an exam. All of these are processes. Cohesive skills: how do we deal with the universe? How do we deal with the cosmos, with one another, with the environment? Those are the cohesive skills. Duality skills. We live in a slippery, dualistic, somewhat difficult and challenging world, and that's where duality skills come in. Existential life skills is part of the life glacier or the work glacier, which we will see soon, and it's a very one of the five important levels of being, one of the five important levels of existence. And the existential life skills are such as the boundary skills, how to set boundaries, where do I begin, where do I end? When people are criticizing me, are they criticizing me, or do I project my identity onto their criticism? Boundary skills, emotional intelligence skills, ego skills, how to work with one's own ego is very important. Identity skills. So these are skills which are not often talked about, but they are crucial. And oftentimes I have found problems that I have seen in companies and also in families come from this layer. So the key is to acquire key skills. Some people may be an expert in processes, some people may be an expert in the holistic or big picture view of how organizations work. But like Coach John Wooden said, his team won 88 consecutive championship games during his UCLA coaching days. Basically, we need to be able to perform all aspects of the job. The four pillars of the art of execution are designed in such a way that you become a complete worker in the diagnosis and the transformation of a company. And in some cases, when you don't have the power, you will know where your limits are, you will know what you can do, and you will also know the importance of stealth, like process ninja. Ninja is supposed to be invisible. Stealth, they work underground, and you don't want people to be able to stop you. And sometimes when you don't have the power, you really don't want to show your hand because then you can be removed as a threat. So the four pillars makes you a complete worker. At least intellectually, you will understand it and be able to execute accordingly. Okay? And this video here is packed full of principles put into very cryptic terms and covered very briefly. It's taken from 80 hours of material that I have put together over the years, and I've taken some slides from the different workshops and put them into one deck here, trying to share with you a case study. Right? So it's a lot of learning, acquiring of the skills, because if you are in Australia, in Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, Argentina, wherever you are, and if you want to transform your organization, that is it's a very worthwhile challenge, and it requires you to have a certain amount of experience and insight. And my purpose here is to package 30 plus years of experience based on the principles of the Tao and share that with you. And if you can acquire that within 1 to 3, 4 months, I think that will be remarkable. Nothing replaces experience, but the basic knowledge and the lay of the land of the art of execution framework, that's definitely available on the internet. I got 40 plus hours of videos on Vimeo, and I got a number of YouTube videos and 400 pages of writing over the years, which I'm trying to organize into a book with the help of some people. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Interdependence. A problem never exists in isolation. It is surrounded through space and time with other problems, with other things. And the more of the context of the problem that we can understand, the more likely we are able to find a good solution for the situation. This is especially true when you are talking about a huge corporation, the organization behemoth, the organization beast. It takes on a life of its own. It works in a certain way. And the delegation of power within corporations are usually to a group, to a cadre of people, to a head honcho, and the head honcho would just run the show. So pretty much if you don't belong to the dominant coalition inside the corporation, then you are an outsider, which severely limits your ability to execute. However, when you are on the inside, you are pretty much a cog in the wheel, and you are told what to do. Here's an example. There's cheese everywhere for the mouse. So you are in a company, everything is cush. You don't have a daily pressure. You don't have a daily deadline for you to meet. Nobody comes and walk in and asks about where you are, what you have done, how come you missed the deadline, how come this project is not moving ahead. It seems like a very comfortable and safe environment, but actually it's not, for a number of reasons. Like the mouse there is feeling kind of stressed. Your survival the company of your survival depends on your productivity. Sanzi in the Outer War says, warfare is of the utmost importance. The survival of the nation depends on it. Study it well. During peacetime, the output of a company is of the utmost importance. So if you destroy the production processes, then you destroy the company. And when you find yourself in an environment which is dysfunctional and the output is not forthcoming because the input plus the processes are broken, are not working, and nobody is paying attention to it. Number one, you are getting weaker by the day because you are not adding value to the company, to yourself, to your group, to the universe. So your justification for being there gets weaker on a daily basis. And what's really gonna keep you there, I guess, is having good relationship with the power click. So that's one reason for you to sweat. Second reason is when there are deadlines, you cannot get traction, you cannot move ahead, and when you try to escalate, the programmers and the testers, they can always say, which they do, they have too many projects and priorities are different for different people because management has not agreed upon which problem should be first. And then on top of it, they have production problems. On top of it, they have mission critical enterprise projects. So basically, unless you are on a top priority project, you pretty much have no traction. And your success will be at the mercy of the managers who assign projects, who assign people, who assign testers, programmers, and especially the people who assign the systems analysts, the business systems analysts, who write requirements documents because a project is not supposed to move ahead without a signed off requirements document. So even though it looks very cushy, very calm, everything is quiet, but there's a lot of undertow, and the owl is always watching. They are continually watching you. And in this environment, the time and the expertise, rather than being focused on work, production processes, what are the different workstations, and what kind of problems do we encounter at the workstations, and what problems do we get when we hand off the work product to the next workstation. No attention is paid to such things. And the attention instead is on playing Jeopardy, having crazy head contests, having potlucks, which these are all great social events. But in an environment where people come in late, leave early, Friday, 3, 4 p.m., nobody is there. Holidays, people are dismissed early to begin the celebration. The focus is very much on, I guess, keeping the crew happy and laid back. I don't want to say lazy and sassy, but in many ways that is true. So that can be a very stressful environment, and actually it should be. Even for the people who are in the gangs, over time they lose their power, they lose their traction in the professional world because they have not acquired interdependent skills, and they have become dependent. So we talked about the warfare being vital to a nation's survival. Similarly, having good production processes, because output is equal to input plus process. So if the result is important to a company's survival, Toyota must make cars. If the cars don't come out, if they come out poor quality, the company is going to fail. So this is pretty standard. And the art of execution, it's about resolving such problems as a framework. We talked about what to do, primary root causes. There are always many problems or many solutions or many dynamics going on at any one time. And life is filled with change. Nothing is ever stable. So at any one time, something is going out of balance, and sometimes it is habitual. It's a habitual pattern of dysfunction. In that case, what would be the first problem to solve? And this can be very confusing, indeed, even for an industry insider like myself. Process ninja skills, how best to do it, how to move from point A to point B. Cohesive skills, how do you honor people's limitations? How do you have teamwork when people try to come after you, when they try to attack you for whether I deserve it or not? How do I handle such situations? In the human societies, there is not an adequate self-defense conflict management system, because for people who know sports, martial arts, it is not possible to supposed to be aggressive. You're not supposed to be aggressive. You're not supposed to be hostile in a work environment. However, the training is such that you come in, whether you are studying Eskrima, stick fighting, or tennis, or volleyball, basketball. This can be very extremely aggressive and physical sports, which is not acceptable at work. However, the energy, people turn pale, people begin to shake, they can't even talk, they avoid seeing each other because they have reached the flush point. So we are conditioned to escalate into overt external aggression, and that definitely is not cohesive skills. Cohesive skills is how, when you are faced with direct aggression, direct confrontation, how can you relax? Relax your face, relax your throat, relax your vocal cords, relax your body, and you maneuver and you manipulate. There are some people who can do it; those are the masters. But most people, 99.5% of people, cannot do it based on what I have seen. So, anyways, teamwork is very important, but it's beyond us when we are really provoked. Duality skills, the good and the bad, the fast and the slow, the different people have different work styles, different people have different preferences, and the manager and the worker and the executives and the testers and the developers, they all have different perspectives, different preferences. How do we reconcile all of these, and how do we work with them? So organizational dysfunction, it is not to be rude. Let's just call it spade a spade. If something is not working, it's not functional, then it is a dysfunction. And the dysfunction, in some cases, it can appear very like laissez-faire. It's very calm. This person works for the city, and she said she had a new boss for the last year and a half, and she hasn't seen the big boss in a meeting over the last year and a half, hasn't even met the guy. And pretty much the focus is on anything but work. That is somewhat destroying the building. That destroys the morale, destroys the pride of workmanship. It destroys ownership, commitment, accountability, and over time it destroys their capability and their motivation. It is very, very destructive. First of all, to get into a situation like that and begin to settle into that complacency and that corruption. And if one stays there over time, one pretty much will lose a lot of the skills that if one had any to begin with. So let's look at the 5 dysfunctions, right? Inattention to results. We do anything, but we don't pay attention to the results. These are quasi or government organizations, because when you are in corporate America, pretty much that's not allowed. And when you are in a privately owned company, the owner usually is pushing the troop. Avoidance of accountability, lack of commitment, fear of conflict, absence of trust. This is based on the book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. You can Google or YouTube it, and if you look at any place that's not working properly, or even if a place that is working properly, if you go and take a look at it, you can find these 5 dysfunctions are there. They're not necessarily the best way to describe a situation, but it's a framework that I'm using here. Inattention to results. Management, team leaders, they are not sitting around reviewing goals. We come to work not to really work the system, to work the processes. We just go there, we show up, we just kind of do a little here, do a little there without priority, without focusing on the work processes or how much progress one has made and how much progress one should make. Colin Powell said, it doesn't matter what you tell the soldiers, it is what you do. Soldiers are watching you. And you may even say, okay, your performance appraisal is tied to you writing this design document. That is throwing a goal that one must meet, but that is not the love of process. That is not being process oriented. That is not studying it. That's not paying attention to it. That's not saying it's important. That's saying it's important for you to get your raise, therefore you should do it. And that's what I'm talking about, lack of attention to the work processes. The most recent document that I found on this particular project was 2003. The last time the document was updated for a key, crucial, pivotal, complex system used in the product. The last update of the document was the technical bulletin was dated 2003. So there's no knowledge retention, no documentation, no training. When you staff are brought on board, pretty much they are thrown in the fray, and there's very little or no intentional development of the people to make sure they have the knowledge. No staff retention. As a matter of fact, it almost looks intentional. They are trying to drive out people on some particular critical systems, subsystems. About 95% of the knowledge base have walked out the door, including founding mothers of the systems, and it just looks very strange. And it almost looks like the management and leadership, they go to at all costs, they will avoid talking about work, which is very strange. Then the end result is what kind of projects you get, how you get ahead, how you get the praise is based on your affiliation, not based on your performance, because performance is not important. As a matter of fact, the management almost seems like they rather have let there be bad performance, bad documentation, high turnover, losing of key people, because I think it appears that it vindicates them of their responsibility, because they can always point to it and says, look at the lack of teamwork, look at the turnover, look at the people, how they are just jumping ship in this highly explosive and quick growing industry. And obviously people who are not within the game, they are brought in for certain purposes. Once the purpose has been served, they are browbeat, kicked, brutalized, and driven out. I have personal experience, I've seen it. The antidote, obviously, J.W. Marriott, if you do a Google on Marriott management philosophy, he says, pay close attention to the fine details of any operation, makes that operation first class, basically process. Just make sure what you do is the most efficient, most error-free. And the avoidance of accountability. I was given a position, somewhat of a promotion into a lead position to guide and enforce that the other project managers are doing certain amount of project management activities, such as logging risks and coming up with schedules in a certain format and according to templates. But I said I declined it because if somebody cannot commit to a date, if you cannot commit to a date, then you cannot hold them accountable. If you cannot hold them accountable, then you cannot invoke consequences. If you cannot invoke consequences, then whatever tracking, monitoring you are doing has no traction. It's a joke. It's a waste of time. Therefore, in a dysfunctional environment, to the extent possible, you want to be as close to the production line as possible and begin to work the production processes, assuming that you are a SME, subject matter expert, and if you are not, you want to acquire the knowledge as quickly as you can. The work comes straight in without being prioritized, without being sized, and just dumped. I was in a meeting once, and this lady, she came and she said to the manager, I was in the room along with number of other people, and she said, look, this cannot continue. I go to bed at midnight, 1 a.m., and I'm up again at 5:30 a.m. This just cannot continue. I cannot sustain this. For the people who don't understand the game of confusion, it almost looks like the tactic is a parasitism. They are living off of the system, but they don't want the system to die, so they can continue to profit from the system, probably through contracting an alternative source of income in the scenario. When somebody doesn't understand that we have a parasitic paralysis, it looks like a tactic, and they jump in trying to salvage and turn around the situation, they get burned out, they get destroyed in the process, because no amount of individual hard work can compensate for systems end-to-end process problems. For example, if you go on the freeway and every single lane is packed and there's a gridlock, no car is going anywhere. You cannot go and say, okay, this driver is a bad driver, because you have a systems problem. You either have to increase the number of lanes, or you have to create carpool lanes, or you have to do something at a higher level. So they call it a common cause versus special cause. Special cause is related to the person, common cause is related to the system. And when management and leadership create common cause problems without planning, prioritization, and just dump everything on the table for everybody to grab, That is a systems problem. And no amount of hard work can a programmer compensate for the testers, the other programmers, and the competing priorities, and the different teams having rivalry, because if one does not understand the situation, one can easily begin to pick fights with some manager or some team leads, and it does happen. A lot of skirmishes, a lot of bad blood and siloing, and people finger pointing to one another. But then the system looks like it's set up for such conflicts and misunderstanding and confusion to happen. And when confronted, some of the managers, they would, for example, respond in writing, "Oh, let's get to the bottom of this. Tomorrow morning, first thing, let's get the five of us together." It's a pattern. It's a dance. It's a ritualistic dance that they go through with no intention to fix the problem, because it just continues. And after over a year, then you begin to see it's a pattern. It's just how they have evolved and adapted to surviving in that environment, and looks like that environment is set up intentionally. And for people who are not that close to the production line, the HR people or whoever, they pretty much come out and say, "Oh yeah, because we've grown so fast, we've double, tripled in size," and that is true. I have seen growth. I have seen hard work. Hard work doesn't look like 30-hour week and explosive growth. Many companies, many industries have gone through explosive growth, from McDonald's to Google to Apple to whoever. And how do you manage growth? You manage growth through perfecting your processes and replicating it. That's how you can take something to Japan, to go international, to go national, to go statewide. And none of those techniques are being used here, and it is very strange. And obviously, if we have some big high-level problems, such as that maybe $2 billion worth of claims are not being paid, and there are serious problems about having information about the doctors and providing information, then we can use that as an excuse to justify all the other problems and all the other things that we are not doing, because we are firefighting some big problems, which in some cases has been going on for 3 years. If it's been going on for 3 years, it's no longer a problem. It is a way of life. It's just the way it is. There's something fundamentally wrong. So the question is, how can you diagnose and how can you unravel this whole thing, right? So high turnover, what can managers do? And then, so everything becomes interconnected. Like Rumi said, we are looking in the leaves what can only be found in the roots. Now we are saying, well, all these people are new. They don't have skills. But why are they new? What happened to the experienced, seasoned people? How come the knowledge was not retained? How come it was not documented? How come there's no onboarding training? How come there's no cross-functional, interdepartmental communication and collaboration? Why not? And the other coping mechanisms where application team 1 will go to application team 2 and say, okay, this is not my problem, it's their problem. And the other team ends up analyzing, taking the time analyzing, debugging, and finding out something is wrong, and then tell the first team in the first place. So the teams have learned to typically use other teams to do the dirty work, quote unquote, until the problem has been fully debugged and identified. Then they go and solve the problem. And then nobody really owns the end date. If the project is late, it's late. And everybody else, so for the lack of processes, finally, for example, they came up with a new group that controls the deployment of the code into production. And that group comes up with their own processes with all their best intentions, but their own processes can end up delaying the project from a day to a week. And the bottom line is nobody really cares. Let the customers suffer. It got to a point where the customers don't really care. They are used to it. This one customer said to me, I'm shocked that somebody is actually working on our problems. I'm shocked these projects were requested 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and now somebody is working on them. So the conflict between teams, obviously the requirements documentation is not there, or documents are not clear, and they don't assign business analysts to write documents. So all of these you have all the reasons not to be able to give a date and not to be able to do it right. And the solution has been around forever. The last 100 years, we've been doing software development. Basically, you give a fixed number of work to the people based on their capability. Then you say, okay, for this problem, how long will it take you to do it? And the person will look at the problem and tell you, okay, it will take me how long? This is a standard estimation process. Anybody who does any work is supposed to be doing. And then we can hold the team accountable with a fixed price, right? For example, can you get it done in a week, or rather than $50 per hour? So, fixed price or hourly. The lack of commitment. I've seen projects where you find carcasses and previous versions of the requirements document. You find pieces of fragments of the code that have been attempted for this project over the years in the environment, which is confusing the current development team. So that project took about 8 months to finish. It's a compliance-related project, and I personally feel very proud, even though I was written up for bad performance. But I felt very proud because we had a dilapidated team, and we had all new players basically, except for 1 or 2 people. And there was no requirements analyst, so I did all the requirements work myself, and so on. So I'm very proud that we overcame incredible odds and we got it done. Then there appears to be historical bad blood because in some cases the business teams took sides when there were power struggles between managers in the IT shop, and then some business people became enemies or enemies, yeah. And then now when time comes to assign people to work on projects, that particular business team gets zero priority and looks like every chance this IT management gets, they try to abandon those projects. And customers are in despair, and they will encounter production problems, and up to 10 days they have complete work stoppage. And from what I can see, nobody seems to care. So this is the environment. I'm not complaining. Hopefully I'm not being negative, which I'm not. I'm trying to describe a situation. So if you're ever in such a situation similar to this, it will hopefully give you some road signs, some principles which you can use. And in an environment like this, if you escalate, if I go to a programmer's manager or if I go to a manager and say their people are not responsive, where can they go? What can they do? So then does it really help? And if you get aggressive and persistent in arguing with the other managers, then you just end up becoming a troublemaker. And once again, common problems cannot be solved by a specific person, right? Common cause was a special cause. And if you know that it's a wrong battle to fight, number one, and it's a battle that cannot be won, number two. Number three, even if you can win the battle, you will lose the war because you can probably go and prove that manager wrong, but then you made an enemy for yourself, and that manager is not responsible for the entire common problem anyways. So IT staff trying to I have seen things I've never seen before. You come to a weekly project meeting, the IT staff will show up and openly try to kill the project. As it turned out, subsequently I was told that if there are excuses why a project was officially canceled or stopped or delayed or put on hold, then that vindicates, that gets everybody off the hook. But if I got the requirements done and if I got the design done and now the team is ready to code and they cannot finish the software development, then they become responsible and they can be put on probation. So I understood it's a very difficult situation. They've been through this before. They were burned. Some of them were put on probation a number of times. And so there was a tremendous amount of fear, which drove to such kind of a strange behavior. And with all due respect, the scamming, almost like charming a snake by blowing a pipe. And I saw all kinds of techniques, all kinds of sleight of hand, making changes to the software and not letting the team know. And then even though we had version control, they tried to confuse the situation by saying, oh, the problem was caused by somebody else. But it was just amazing to watch all of that. And because the environment is not really focused on results and meeting the dates, therefore it become a fertile ground for people to bring in their relatives, their cronies, and to cultivate spies so they can continue the status quo and enjoy their income and the power. The broken cross-functional processes create indefinite wait time between QA, quality assurance, and testing, between requirements and the customer, between requirements and the development team. All of these things, unless the project manager goes and pushes himself or herself, it can go into a a long period of wait time. And then at this point, different teams have different agenda. The deployment team, they want to make sure the correct code is moved into production clearly, and they can do whatever they want to do. They can come up with new processes which are filled with NVA, non-value added activities, which are increasing the wait time. You end up with an increase in cycle time, increase in error rate in the every time you move the code to quality assurance environment, to the UAT environment, you need to come up with a brand new set of requests with 90% of the information redundant. So nobody cares. So let's just take the time and do the basic work. So it's a very dysfunctional and wasteful environment. It's a travesty in my mind. The solution is common sense. You make sure you give the work to the team that the team can do, and make sure they know which one they should work on first, and then you don't double their workload while they are going, because then you would destroy any kind of scheduling and priority. But that's what's going on. Fear of conflict, sharing ideas can make you a target for ousting, right? If you can point out what's wrong with the processes as if you are a process ninja, now if they are doing this incorrectly, intend to say the right thing at the right time, only if it makes the right results. But if it doesn't, it's better to remain silent and be compliant, and you wait for the right moment, the right time to make your move, or you will be removed, you will be attacked. Rigorous debate, so there's no debate, there's no discussion. Pretty much everybody is mum, and people are quiet because I think a number of reasons. Nobody want to be seen intentionally stepping out of their boundary, their functional area, because if you do, you are indirectly challenging the leadership, because all these people actually report up to the leadership or to the senior managers. And now you are performing some of the tasks they should be doing. So what are you saying? So it's better to just focus on the potluck and the crazy head contests and the bingos and the Jeopardy games, and just keep quiet and keep on going. You will have your job there. You don't talk about roles and responsibility and the process problems, because when you talk about these things, very quickly people know, okay, so why are the problems like this? So it's almost like it's understood. So the elephant is not in the living room. The elephant is walking the hallways. It's everywhere. So just be hush, be mum. There's definitely a fear of conflict. And you definitely, when you suspect people's motives, and if you suspect that they do certain things intentionally, why would you go and talk to them about it? I guess some people like myself actually did that, but that's not really the best thing to do. Useless to escalate against victims of bad processes. I talked about that. And if you don't see the big picture, like I said, some people, they work so hard, they work weekends, they work on PTOs, they work after hours, and eventually they resign in tears, and because they try so hard, they are heartbroken, really, really hurt. And the other side is some people just get really angry. They begin to attack other people because now they're next and their jobs are on the line. Now you are viewed as a troublemaker, right? So the symptom is that, okay, this person doesn't get along with the team. But the reality is there are common systems problems causing a lot of confusion, a lot of conflict. And that's the root cause. That's what's in the roots. Like Rumi said, you cannot find a solution in the leaves. You cannot go to manager A, manager B, programmer B, and tester D and say, you guys are bad and you're not doing your job. Those are unwinnable and useless battles. But if you don't see the interconnectedness of the systems and processes, you won't be able to see that. The solution actually is fairly simple, right? You need to the person who owns the common cause, for example, the CFO owns everybody in accounts payable, accounts receivable. So if accounts payable doesn't get along with accounts receivable, and the CFO should be able to mediate between the two, because both of them report up to the CFO. Then the Chief Financial Officer will say, accounts payable, would you please do this and that, versus something else. But when you have, let's say, claims processing against provider network operations, against IT, against finance, who do all of these people report up to? Somebody can tell the claims team to behave this way towards the provider team, towards the call center membership team. The person all these people report to. So that's the CEO, unfortunately, because then that means the CEO must have the time, the stomach, the understanding, and the skills. And that's why the art of execution framework, in my opinion, is important for every single CEO to know, because it is their obligation to run the company properly, even though they are really interested and involved in more important things such as return on investment, velocity, profit margin. This is, that's what they need to focus on. However, they also have to take the lead because of their position, and they own the common problems. A problem between provider and the claims and IT, the problem common to those three departments is not owned by the CFO or the COO or the CIO. It's owned by the person all those three departments report to, and oftentimes that's the CEO. Lack of trust, right? The outer world talks about the use of spies as being the most highly paid division of soldiers, because the intelligence gathered by the spies tells the army what to do. And I think corporate America, in corporate Japan, corporate world have been studying the outer world for the longest time, but I think there's a misunderstanding. And also, I think they've subscribed a little bit too much to the end justifies the means by the Niccolo Machiavelli's book, The Little Prince. In the outer world, Sanzi actually cut off the heads of the leads of the couple of ladies in the palace, because he assigned them to be the leads, and when the palace girls did not perform the movements that Sanzi wanted them to, he beheaded two of the leads. And I think this sets an example for the corporate executives and managers that they should come out and really have their team leads brutalize people and control people, basically browbeat people into zombies. And I think that's a misunderstanding, because you can control people, convince people using principles and processes. You don't have to be mean about it, but it's a misunderstanding. And there's an environment where the focus is not on meeting their commitments, being accountable to delivering results. What do people end up doing? They end up spending their time doing controlling. So they have a lot of local spies. People stop by my desk and look at my screen, and I even offer them, I said, take a picture, take a picture of my documents on the table. And it was actually, it's an interesting, refreshing experience, because I read about such things. I've seen some of it within Citigroup over the years, very minor. But in this case, it's intense and it's intentional. There are multiple spies. There are local spies, foreign spies, plenty spies. There are even spies for the IT management in other departments, which is always very interesting, very interesting. And how do I know? Because somebody tells me, I hear it back from somebody else from a certain position. So it's pretty clear. And I don't think they try to hide it. They definitely want you to know that they are the force and they are the power and they are the way. And people know, cronies and relatives get the plum positions, and rightfully so, be honest with you. I believe it's important to build a strong team. I believe it's important to build a strong network of people. But more importantly, they should uphold the results and processes and bring happiness to the group and to the company and to everybody else, and not destroy the production processes and not promote themselves at the expense of other people. That's my opinion. And again, if you are not in the right place with the right team, you can get bad projects. You can get people who are traumatized or who are difficult to work with. And I have seen that. Believe me, if I didn't go through my decades of Aikido cohesive skills training, it would have been impossible to handle some of these situations. And they don't assign people to your project to BRDs. And if you don't have the skills, pretty much you are dead in the water. You are at their mercy, like that mouse inside the maze, filled with cheese and good times, but knowing the end is near, and you are losing traction, losing power every day with each passing day. You don't want to cross functional managers' boundaries, especially senior managers. So the hawk is watching you. Don't be fooled. And the question is like the question of trust, right? When I was in that particular company, after 2 weeks, I said, I'm ready for any day to be my last day, because the wall is not the wall, the ceiling is not the ceiling. Things and people that you can normally count on to guide you and to be on your side were not on your side. It was almost like they want you to leave to make to make their manager look bad or to make the CIO look bad. It's just strange. I'm not one to speculate, to dwell on people's intentions and to project motives into other people. That's not what I do. I avoid doing that. However, just based on what they say, based on what they do, it's just very strange. Do they really want the key staff members to leave? Looks like they wanted to. And the interesting thing is all these key staff people, when they leave, lots of them, they never tell you where they are going to, and they will take 3 weeks vacation beforehand, and they take 2 more weeks vacation after they come back, and they leave. Pretty much everybody leaves on a bad, sour note. So the least browbeat their team members because they are the war. They need to control their people. They need to make sure when they give a command, people follow, because that is the survival of the army and the military. But I think that principle is misapplied. You end up running a mafioso gangland at work, or Nazi concentration camp. Not to exaggerate too much, but the level of suffering and pain that I see, that I hear, that I have personal experience. When you sit there, you see all these problems, very basic, very simple, but you don't know who you can talk about it. And in my case, I'm a seasoned, proven professional. I did home banking, ATM banking, multi-million-dollar projects, easy. To be in a situation like this actually is being an extremely interesting and challenging case study, but also very, very difficult. Pretty much I had to bring almost everything that I know to bear: duality skills, cohesive skills, process ninja skills, as well as leaders edge skills. So which is great. It's being a proving ground for the framework, that the framework does work. And once again, you cannot transform the place until you have the permission to drive the bus, right? Are they creating production processes intentionally? So everybody makes mistakes here and there, but when you see so many points are broken, so little attention are paid to it, and nobody ever talks about anything about how to produce the proper software, except now with the new CEO, the COO, the new C-suite in place, they are saying, okay, now you are required to do this document, to do that document. But that's still not the focus on process. That's just saying, this is homework you must do, or I'm going to beat you. But that's not meeting people's needs. That's not helping people to grow. Let's just continue the same old way of managing. So you serve a purpose and no longer fits you out. So here's an example. The state of Oregon sued Oracle for $2.4 million because the software the Oracle provided did not work. And the state of Oregon charged Oracle in racketeering, false claims, and broken contracts. So at a very high level, what went wrong? If you're just looking at this from afar, obviously the chain of command is broken, right? If the brain wants to move the right foot, the foot cannot move, cannot do what it's supposed to do. The central nervous system is broken. The chain of command is broken. We know they did not apply the agile methodology. They did not deliver working pieces, because if they delivered working pieces after $2.4 billion, some working pieces should be there. So they were delivering one big chunk, or they deliver chunks which did not quite work well together. Production processes has to be wrong, because the output equals input plus process. If the output is not forthcoming, then you know for sure that the process is broken. And obviously the organizational structure did not allow for monitoring, tracking, and escalation, right? Reporting systems, escalation systems, decision-making systems. So it failed holistically. And the out of execution framework is designed for projects like this and places like that. And it's very appropriate for the CEOs to understand the keys about process improvement and the C-suites. That's good. They need to know. However, this framework is the first framework that can be wielded by somebody anywhere in the organization at any level of power, because it will give them the understanding and the diagnosis tool. They may not be able to implement the solution, but they will be able to understand what they can and cannot accomplish from where they are. All right. So could you have helped? The question, if you were there, you are the organization leverage person, which is the fruits, the fruition of the art of execution. For people who have studied and become well versed in the art of execution framework, they will have the capability to make a decisive difference if they don't get themselves fired. So it's very important. All right, so let's summarize the 4 pillars. The 4 pillars are: you will be able to use the leader's edge to see what you should do. You will be able to diagnose the problem and how you should do it by using the process ninja skills. And then you need to have teamwork, right? Everybody needs to cooperate. Everybody in the different departments, the different teams have to work together to produce the output. That's the result of differentiation and specialization. After the Industrial Revolution, we became specialists, but the specialists have to be reintegrated. That's where the project managers come into play. But the problem is project management is a generic life skill. Anybody can acquire project management skills. Therefore, that makes project managers easily replaceable and a target for blames and so on. And then finally, the duality skills. How do you navigate? How do you avoid from being stuck on the web of duality, right? So now you can say, okay, the art of execution is a theory. How does it work? Does it really work? This art of execution framework works. It's been proven to work. And the examples, I can give you many examples. In this case, I'll give you one example as we continue on the slides. If it doesn't work, perhaps the principles are not clear, not clearly explained or poorly understood, or it is not a principle, right? So this is for you to decipher for yourself that if the art of execution is actually a viable framework. I put my life on it. Yes, it does. But a word of warning: every situation is different. Variation is the leading characteristic of our world. Change. Everything is continually changing. Therefore, there's variation. And it takes experience and insights to understand the situation sometimes. So the essence of acquiring the leader's edge is to unhinge on physical reality. Everything looks bad, there's broken process, but you can see beyond what is currently going on, and you can see the causes for what's causing what's going on, and you can see the solutions to fix what's going on, and you can see the methods and ways and the organizational principles and the power principles to bring that solution to bear. So you don't end up bashing your head against the wall or kicking people in the shin unintentionally because you don't really know. And the leader's edge gives you that big picture, right? This guy went into Alaska, he actually died there. So the leader's edge tells you what to do. It gives you a compass. It allows you to navigate into the unknown, into the wild, right? And most people, we walk on the trail like the caterpillars. They must be connected to a branch, right? Like this yellow one is standing up so high, but it is still attached physically. And Lily Tomlin said, when you are in the rat race, even if you win, you are the biggest rat. But on the other hand, the goal is to unhinge from physical reality, such as a bird. You can fly in the air, such as a fish. You're always in the water, but like a starfish, you are stuck. So the leader's edge gives you that mobility, gives you that ability to move about freely in the environment because you understand the principles. The leader's edge has multiple components, multiple principles, but one principle that I wanted to mention specifically is a solutions orientation. You do not spend time hopping, complaining, whining, having emotional reactions about your problems. You go straight to your solutions. You just see the situation, you begin to execute. So that takes experience to make sure that you are actually doing the right thing right rather than doing the wrong thing right? Here is the work glacier. You have the 7 dimensions of work. This person is coming to the project meeting trying to kill the project in front of the customer, and the person gets angry with the other members of the project team, such as the QA person or the project manager or the customer and argues openly in front of everybody and lies with a bold face. I'm not here to make false accusations. Cut the person black and white through version control software such as the ClearCase or Team Foundation server from Microsoft. And the project is not going, it is stuck, and it's just taking, and there's no planning horizon. Planning horizon is how far into the future can you accurately see the project. You cannot just look beyond a week, 2 weeks on an 8 months project, which was launched 3 years ago. And then you can tell what the company is going through. It's pervasive. The broken processes and dysfunction are pervasive. The clicking and interdepartmental rivalry is also pervasive. Non-caring, non-commitment, non-ownership is also pervasive. When you look at the industry, perhaps these are all county-operated health plans. I'm not sure what the deal is, but I definitely didn't see such things. But I also heard some other companies, such as HealthNet, may have something similar in terms of processes. So these are the 7 dimensions of work. You will look at it. That's what's above the water, the tip of the iceberg. And then you have the work processes. We talked about how important the processes are. Process ninja skills are covered separately in a subsequent section in this workshop. We'll talk more about that. This is what determines your output. By the time, if you are managing the output only, then it's too late. You are looking at history. You are looking at entropy. You are looking at something that's already been done. You can no longer impact the outcome. So you need to look at the process. When you control the process, control the input, you also control the output. It's very, very important. The principles of effectiveness, personal, interpersonal, managerial, organizational. How can you apply the principles properly, and if they are not, what can you do to correct them? So these are the 5 layers of being, 5 layers of existence. Then you have the golden triangle. These are the key. Most of the problems are found here. Existential principles, existential life skills, ego skills, boundary skills, emotional intelligence skills, emotional resilience skills. It's crucial. Does a person know how to work with his or her own ego under difficult situations? Then we have the 6 human traits. 100 million human beings perished in war. 65% of marriages end up in divorce because of the human traits. We need to understand them and overcome them. We can never be objective. We can only compensate for our subjectivity because, one, the personal filters. We see the world through the personal filters, just like how fish discovers water last. 2, tit for tat. We tend to reciprocate in kind. There's no self-determination, self-reliance, self-mastery. There's other determination. We are easily controlled by other people. And then we have the creator's complex. We believe we are right. We tend to persecute other people whom we disagree with. Then we have the shifting identity principle. One moment I'm on top of the world, I win. My identity is shifted to being a victor. Next moment, my identity is being shifted to a victim. And the 5th personal trait, human trait, is the chattering mind. 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts go through the mind every day. It's 95% redundant, 95% negative, 95% grasping, woe is me, hope and fear. And the problem is it confuses the situation. And some people believe, including myself sometimes, whatever thought comes into the mind to be the truth. And that can be a horrible thing because those are just fleeting thoughts. And the last human trait that causes tremendous amount of problem is the predisposition. All of us are, since childbirth, even since during pregnancy, we begin to form our tendencies. And then by the time we are 5 years old, our conflict management styles, our communication styles, our favorite food, our mother tongue, all of those things are already set. Then we have predisposition. When somebody threatens my image or my mother's safety, it pushes a button in me that triggers certain reactions in me. And those are very powerful predispositions, which we need to be very careful about within ourselves and also when we deal with other people. Then we have the nature of reality and identity, right? We live in a referential reality where we cannot identify ourselves except by referring to where I went to school, who I married, I'm Chinese, I have a child, and My wife is from the Philippines. These are all referencing. And so the question is, how can I find myself outside of all of these mirrors? It's called the mirror identity principle. When I look into my mother's face, I'm a son. When I look into my sister's face, I'm a sibling. When I look into my wife's face, I'm a husband. When I look into my coworker's face, I'm a coworker. When I look into my daughter's face, I'm a father, right? So my identity is pretty much mirrored by the world, and how do we work with that? So now, that was the work glacier gives you the big picture holistically, so you can see, rather than focusing on XYZ's behavior, you can look at the totality of the picture and decide what's the root cause, diagnose. Here, we have an organization. Organizations are designed, they are entities, hopefully they are designed intentionally, but in case they are not, you can diagnose what the problems are. You look at the results and you compare with the stakeholder needs. And if there's a gap, usually there is a gap, you will take a look and say, okay, why are we getting the results we are getting? Because we have a culture, we have certain behaviors. And you say, okay, how come the culture is like this in the first place? We have all different kinds of systems, decision-making systems, information system, reward system, promotion system, training system, and then we have these all-important work processes. I can set up work processes for different groups in such a way that they will actually have conflict. I can do it intentionally. I can create internal competition. Then you have the organizational structure. So these key systems components for a corporation, for a company, will create a culture. And here you have a pivotal question. Find out why the systems have been designed as they are by deducing what strategy and or mission are driving them. This deduction is the logical extension of the chain of behaviors and systems. If no formal strategy or mission is the driver, proceed to step number 5. And when I look at this, so eventually we go back to the MVV, mission, vision, and value statement. We want to assign our mission, vision, and value statement against the principles of effectiveness of the organization. That's a different topic for a different day. That's a 3-day workshop I attended a number of years ago. But the question is, when I look at a highly dysfunctional situation like the one that I'm talking about, it makes me wonder, I mean, unless it's complete lack of knowledge or complete lack of ownership, or maybe they were browbeat over the years and the decades where they just lost their incentive, lost their motivation to do the right thing. I cannot imagine, I cannot fathom there's a good motivation for them to design the system this way. So therefore, all I can say is perhaps the looms of evil is weaving up evil schemes day and night. And in many instances, it does look like that. However, going back to the art of war, unless you have concrete hard evidence, it's better not to talk about it, because you end up on a ghost hunt and then you destroy the teamwork, the further trust, at least the superficial trust that there appears to be, that at least keeps the peace. And then it's destructive because you're not able to formally convict anybody and you're not able to improve the situation. So you end up back to where you started. Like the Korean conflict, right? They fought, I guess, 3 to 5 years. They ended up at the 38th parallel at the DMZ, Panmunjom in Korea. They didn't do anybody any good, except lots of people died. Just my opinion. What do I know? So here's the diagnosis worksheet. If you are a fly on the wall, you are here watching what's going on, and then what would you hear on the while you are the fly on the wall, right? So this gives you a chance to correct it. Leader's Edge is a very extensive sub-framework itself, and it's just an example of some of the tools, the checklist. So let's move to the process ninja skills. And I will only cover 2 pillars here rather than covering all 4 pillars, because to cover everything in detail really is a week-long workshop. And anybody who is interested, let me know. I'll be happy to do the workshop for you for free. As I have 40 plus webinars, and I've done 1-day, 2-day workshops in altogether maybe 10 different cities over the last 5-10 years, all free of charge. I never charge money for the training that I'm giving. Okay, here, if you look at it, the roots, right? Customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, zero defects, cycle time reduction, Deming's 14 points. You can do a Google on Dr. Deming's 14 points. These are the roots, fundamentals, the theories. Then you have the behavior, the culture. This was done in Citigroup in 1998 by Joe Bloomer. You can see his name. When I was leading the introducing Citibank Quality, introducing Six Sigma to the corporation under John Reed, right before he was ousted at that time. So here you have software engineering process group, software quality index, all that good stuff. The goal was 1 billion customers for the bank. A long time ago, far, far away. So here are the apples. Now here's a very important question. What are the apples? Meaning, what is the fruit of process improvement? What is the fruit of continuous process improvement? Some people say, oh, it is the flow diagrams, the end-to-end, cross-functional, Visio, swim lanes, okay? Some people say those are the big binders of methodology of SDLC, software development lifecycle, PDLC, project development lifecycle, SDM, system development methodology, all this documentation, all these wonderful writings about how we manage small, medium, large, huge, and very small projects, what templates, what artifacts are required to have, and what are the hard gates, meaning you cannot begin construction or writing the code until the requirements have been signed off. All of the wonderful things. What is the key? What is the single most important result, fruit that we are looking from process improvement? Some people it says the end-to-end flow. Some people say templates, documentation, training. It's all good and well. The fruit that we are looking for in a enterprise-wide process improvement initiative is that each worker at each workstation has the skill to create and to maintain their production processes in an error-free and efficient manners without NVA, non-value added activity. That's the apple, okay? And when I said this in Molina, this person in the room said, well, I disagree with you. It's the documentation. The guy was a great guy. We are friends until today. And I said, okay, imagine you have a highly functioning, good process-oriented company, and 80% of the people leave. Would you then overnight lose your process expertise and you will fall down? The person says, yes. I'll say, fine, but we still have the flows, we still have the documents, we still have the templates, we still have all the SharePoints, documentation and diagrams and the schedules. It's all there. How come we lost our process standing? Because we lost skilled people. So let's never forget that. This is free advice to all the CEOs of the world. This is the single most important thing. And this alone can save millions and billions of dollars, because I have seen lots of money wasted when people don't understand this and they are unable to move towards this because I don't think they really get it. No offense. Now the question is, can an apple exist by itself? So here you have a Six Sigma black belt, a master black belt, or you have somebody with 10, 20 years of process excellence and service excellence, and you put that person in the middle of a highly dysfunctional, highly disintegrated environment. Can that person exist and succeed and thrive in an end-to-end cross-functional processes? The answer is no, because that's me. That person is only working in one station, one workstation. The output of a workstation is a result of all the different workstations in the process, plus the input, right? If the input is garbage, you cannot make something good out of it. So you have to make sure you input quality, you input excellence, and your process is excellent, and your process is of highest quality. Then you can get the result that you are looking for. And needless to say, when delivering quality, you don't want to make it a big, humongous, unwieldy thing. So if the new C-suite, the new CEO, CIO is being on the scene for a year and you have not seen any changes on the ground level, there's still no traction, no execution, no noticeable, visible change of any sort, and it continues to be dysfunctional, you know they do not know processes with all due respect. So you have within the team, across the team, you must have that ability. And if you look at it, right, cross-functional, I did process improvement for a company in Cypress, California once, and it was amazing. The people who were having problems, they said like 25 steps from each other, but the departments were not talking. Obviously, cross-functional process improvement requires cross-functional cooperation. Their bosses didn't like each other. The bosses were fighting and trying to beat each other in a power struggle. And then we are expecting the people to have teamwork, right, which was contradictory. Process problems are solved through teamwork, trust, cooperation, and continuous process improvement. So here you will have this diagram Dr. Deming drew in Japan when he went there in 1950s. Very simple. He said to the Japanese, you don't have to make shoddy products. You can make quality. So here are the input A, B, C, D, and here are the different steps: production, process, assembly, inspection, distribute to the customers, customer research, design and redesign the production line and the input. And you can. This is your cycle of continuous process improvement. Until today, this chart was produced. Let's see, 80 years ago, 70, many decades ago. But now, unfortunately, people are still using reorg trying to solve fundamental production problems. Yes, you must do the right thing well. You should not do the wrong thing well. But if the production engine is broken, you cannot do the right thing well. You also cannot do the wrong thing well. You cannot do anything well. So in that case, it is not a question of reorg or strategy. It is a question of process. So this is $1 million insight. First of all, the fruition we are looking for in CPI are skilled, process-oriented workers, number one. Number two, moving boxes around only shows territory and jurisdiction and allegedly responsibility. It does not improve the process. No matter who you move to what under what boxes, the end-to-end processes are still broken, and the C-suite has to say it. But the beauty of the art of execution framework is that if you say it, it's good enough. You don't have to say it to the wrong person. You don't have to say it at all. Just continue to work, continue to acquire your skills, and when the right moment comes, like in the art of war, Sanzi said, if the commander or if the emperor is on the side of morality, on the side of justice, then you will be putting to work. Then your knowledge will be put into play. So my hope is to share this knowledge with anybody who is interested the world over, and then we create what Amelia Earhart said, new runways. Amelia Earhart said she flew across the Atlantic, solo as the first woman, I guess, in her days. She did many, many things. And she said, if you have your runway built for you, what are you waiting for? Take off. If you don't have a runway built for you, what are you waiting for? Pick up a shovel and build one for you and those behind you. My intention is to build one for myself and those behind me so they can reduce suffering and advance consciousness in companies and families around the world. That's the goal for the art of execution. In the case of no processes, right, it is wonderful that, okay, you have processes in place, you have requirements, you have design, you have blueprint, you have construction. So before you begin to build your house, you want to make sure the blueprint is in place, and you must have a gate. You should not begin to build your fireplace before the blueprint is finished. So they call it the gatekeeping. That's great. But in cases where I'm talking about, there are simply no processes. There's no intake, no prioritization, no sizing, no assignment, no making commitment to any specific project. And the management team, the people who own the common problems, the common processing, do not take any time to come to agreements about what should be done first. Then you are in a completely discombobulated environment, similar to a city where all the traffic lights are broken. Traffic lights control priorities and duration, who goes first and for how long from that direction. All the on-ramps lights are broken onto the freeway, so the freeway is clogged up just like the city, and the carpool lanes are not protected by the double solid line, so a Costco grocery truck can cut off a fire engine. So you can intervene with mission critical production problems while you are working on a lower priority project. And this is allowed, and in my mind, I cannot fathom this being unintentional and being a lack of understanding. It just goes beyond me. And I don't understand the motivation behind the design of this system. And what boggles my mind even more is that you got thousands of people looking at this. You got new crew in place. With all due respect, I'm sure they got big, huge problems to solve, but they're unable to see such basic things. And this is why the art of execution framework with the 4 pillars will bring billions of dollars of benefits to companies around the world, and much, much more than that. Any functional link in the process can destroy the outcome. Systemic problem spawning, functional workarounds, crippling processes further. In the case of process disintegration, the deployment team, which controls the movement of code to production, is requiring code review, is requiring test result sign off, and all of that. So that is a very good thing. It's artificially, after the fact, enforcing some kind of a software development processes which are designed to build in quality, because Dr. Deming said quality should be built in, not inspected in. However, by doing it backwards, which is a wonderful thing, it adds other problems. It can add 1 day to 1 week, 2-3 weeks extra cycle time limitations. And overall, it's a good thing, but then it just furthers the culture that nobody really cares about cycle time. Nobody really cares about quality. And we're just going to push our own agenda so we can add value to the situation. And it's really an environment of cynicism and despair. And what I really don't understand is, why would anybody want to live that way? Why would you want to throw your life away in a place where you cannot do your best? And it's almost like, I guess, if I were a woman or a person of color, I couldn't vote, I couldn't drive. In some countries in the world, ladies are not allowed to drive. I mean, why would I want to live in a place, if I were a woman, I won't be able to drive, I won't be able to go to school, and you are stopping me from living my life to the fullest? Like, what the heck? And same thing, when you go to a company just to keep a job, I don't get it. Life is meant to be a lot more than that. I don't mean to preach. What I'm trying to say is, I have all faith. Anybody who wants to work hard can go and find good work and even create their own companies. In my particular case, I want to have a worldwide management consulting company, applying the art of execution framework and teaching that to everybody for free. Individuals come to me, right? When you have corporate clients, it's a different story. Systemic problem spawning, functional workarounds, fixing other functions while on function. Well, I was in a particular situation where the IT project management office wasn't quite smooth yet, and I went to the development team, and they were saying, look, why don't you fix your own problem first before you come and tell me what the solution is, which is fair. So we talked about, okay, quality has to start from the very beginning, from the input and the beginning of the workstation. So when you are in a dysfunctional environment, get as close to the production line as possible, get as early upstream as possible, do as much hands-on work as possible. Just like if you are a driving instructor, you show up, all the cars, 8 cars are blown up, the tires don't work, and 2 of the tires on each vehicle are riding on the rim, barely have any air. The engines don't stay on. When they do stay on, the engine shakes violently and dies after 5 minutes. So in that environment, your job is not to make sure the drivers read the driver's manual. It is for you to participate in replacing the tires, getting priority to fixing the axles, so you can have functioning vehicles. And reorg is fine. And you can say, okay, these 6 people own these 6 vehicles, which is fine, but the vehicles are still not going anywhere. And they need to understand that. So the priority of basic process improvement is priority number 1. It does not come afterwards. It does not come months, weeks, a year after. What you have done is you have reassigned the cars, and you have different drivers and different levels of leadership, but still the cars are not going to go anywhere. And there's no indications that they are moving towards the solution as far as I can see. So I can go on and on. So these are the 2 pillars of the 4 pillars. I will stop here and can continue some other time. Feel free to call, email me, and let me know what you think. 310-902-3389, 310-902-3389. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead